Alrighty. It's drawn drawn to fantasy. It's time for Drawn to Fantasy. I hope everyone's doing well. Thanks for coming and joining me today on Drawn to Fantasy. I'm going to fly solo today. Tom Halfelder, you can probably hear your lovely theme song playing lightly in the background because Angela usually mans the music. So it's just me flying solo. Angela's upstairs. She's recording some reading videos for various outlets. We've been getting a lot of requests for us reading to share with children and families at home. So Angela's working on those right now. Today is episode 15. I thought about doing an April Fool's where I did an entire illustration of something that completely at the end was, ha ha ha, April Fool's. But I actually have a little work to do, and I've got the downtime right now to make the most of it. So I'm actually going to work on minis, little minis, magical minis. They're little tiny figures. They're not much bigger than what I'm drawing here. Miniatures. All right. So here we go. The other day, earlier in the week, we drew a witch. We drew a wicked witch. This was based on a request that we got on Friday when we were doing Draw by Request. And then yesterday, in honor of the great late Tommy DePaula, we drew Stregonona. I've been thinking about this pose, and you know what? I am completely incorporating it in this evil warlock that I'm doing. So what's this warlock for? He is for a miniature. Now, a few years back, we released a line of miniatures called the DiTerlizzi Masterworks. This is an owl bear and its cubs. This is released by Dark Sword Miniatures. There's loads of them. Jim Ludwig, the owner, did a terrific job. You can do anything from those to, if you're feeling very ambitious, here's a dragon with board games and books. That's an amazing miniature. Something to do if you're bored and at home. And boy, a lot of us are at home right now, right? So I hadn't done any new miniatures in a while. And I bet some eagle-eyed older fans had noticed that in the past, I've been posting art that felt vaguely planescape-ish, like this dwarfy guy. There was this gal here. And even this gal here is very tiefling-like. These are kind of experimentations and kind of revisits into the planar world, because we're going to do astral and planar adventurers for the next wave of miniatures for Dark Sword. So this guy, I haven't finished inking him yet, but I have something really, really cool to show you, just to give you an idea of where I'm at and what's going on. It's in this little teeny tiny bag. That is what I'm talking about. That's a little 3D print prototype of the miniatures. Now, geez, some of these people use for games, all kinds of tabletop games. They can use them for characters and adventures. Some people are just hobbyists and they just paint them and do incredible dioramas with them. So you can see this is a prototype of one of the minis, very close to the sketch. I've got one more. So we have done this tiefling gal when did I do her? I did her back in January. Remember that? Back then? Seems like a year ago, doesn't it? And I don't have her other arm here, but let's see. You guys can get kind of a shot of her. So these are being designed on the computer. And then this is kind of a low-res 3D print, and it's a prototype that we can use to, make edits and designs on the character before it goes to be made into a mold and completed. And of course, you can see how unbelievably tiny these are compared to the actual drawings. So I have a handful of drawings still to do for this wave of miniatures, and I thought Jim has been patiently waiting for me to do them, and so I thought today I would work on this evil warlock. Now, again, some people may recognize that this warlock looks very similar to an old guy that I drew way back when, 100 years ago in Planescape. This is a fellow named Baron Parax. This head was based on a sketch in one of my sketchbooks of some old face that I had kind of come up with. And this is a very Maxfield Parrish type pose. Anyway, I love that face and that look, so I'm kind of revisited it and I've kind of upgraded and changed it. Here, let me zoom in on the face so you can kind of see how it's looking. And I'm working on his collar. I was thinking of the bird collar, or the bird skull that we drew the other day on the witch. And I went and got some reference. Some skull reference here before we get drawn. I'll just show you. So here's, this is a mask actually, but here's an actual raven skull. And then here's a mask made of a raven skull, which is kind of neat. So I grabbed these, and I'm going to put the raven skull in his pauldron there. And I've added a little sack that he's going to be holding. And I think I need to do a little bit more work on his staff, but I figured I'll go ahead and get started on... Do you like how I did that? How's that? Why doesn't it work? It's not zooming in. So I'll zoom in on his face for you. And I can get started on inking him. Bear with me. Let me grab a little bit of tape, kind of hold it all in place. And I will occasionally glance up and take, he is very Skeksis-like, Jason. He is meant to be very Skeksis-like. Jim and I kind of talked about it. I was thinking a mixture of a Skeksis and Ming the Merciless, that he's kind of a combination of both of those types of characters, but definitely not a very powerful, but probably not very friendly or nice wizard. He's super, the sculptor's going to hate me on this. I have really covered him in a lot of ornamentation because I feel like he would have just loads of it. And so we'll see how it goes. I also picture his robes fairly dark and ominous. So he's kind of an evolution of everything we've been drawing the last few days. He's certainly in the same position as Stregonona was yesterday, and he is very, I think, wicked, like the wicked witch we drew on Monday. And so I have the phone in front of me as I'm working. Like I said, Andrew's upstairs busy, and I will glance up occasionally, and I will try to take your questions along the way as I'm working. So I'm going to do a little bit of inking. Let me try to get his face inked first. As always, I'm using my Precise pens. This is a V7 and a V5. One's fine, one's extra fine for that extra fine line. So I'm going to go in with that. I actually think I'm going to go right in with the extra fine. I always clean the tip off by just rubbing it between my fingers and getting all that extra gunk off the ball. And I'm going to go in and do the face. So I hope everybody's doing well. Middle of the week. We're hanging in here. You know, Ange and I have gone through, I don't know if you're experiencing this, but just bouts of everything's going to be okay to, oh my gosh, nothing's going to be okay. It's been kind of a strange experience for all of us, obviously. I just, you know, we watch a little bit of TV at night, like I think everybody has been. And movies, we've been watching shows and movies with Sophia, which has been nice. It takes your mind off things. But I overall, I can't stay super focused on anything for any long amount of time. I'm not sure if it's symptomatic. I'm going through two things at once, though. I'm also in between books, so I've finished Kenny and the Dragon 2, switching to the fine pen. I've just finished Kenny and the Dragon 2. So what we would have been doing right now would have been having marketing meetings and talking about my fall book tour and what conventions I'd be attending to promote the release of the book. Obviously, that's all on hold, which makes total sense to me. And so instead, I'm kind of betwixt in between feelings. So normally I'd be doing that, obviously doing this, but I've got another picture book here that Ange wrote that I've been slowly working on, and I just haven't quite had the gas in my tank to stay focused on it. That's why I've been enjoying doing these drawings every day with you, because I can draw for an hour or so. I mean, I was drawing for about an hour before we went live today, just so I could get this sketch ready to go. Transferred it and traced it onto the Bristol board. I'm working at 11 by 14 on this one. And we do have other projects going. Some of my books are being developed into television and film, and so I can't discuss the specifics about it, but I've been involved helping out with that, which has been really, really exciting. And they're all still in development. None of them are in production yet, so I can't elaborate much more until we get them in production, but it's all very exciting. What I'm going to do is collar here. So I probably am off screen. I'm going to zoom out a little bit just so you can see me draw his collar. And then I'll take a couple questions while I catch my breath. There's that collar. I'll be right back. I'm going to turn my music on. I think my classical music shut off. Classical music keeps me going. I'll take a couple questions. Jubal Gordon says, "Is this going to be a Dark Sword miniatures?" Yes. You, if you missed the beginning, it is absolutely a planar. We're going to do some planar type astral characters for a new wave of miniatures. So less traditional medieval fantasy and more this kind of super fantastic bizarro stuff like the artwork and the characters I designed for Planescape. So a few of these have already been designed, and I've got a few more like this wizard in the hopper that I've been slowly working on. He's got a lot of detail in his cowl here, so this is going to take some work. I'm going to zoom back in. Dane, I hope I'm saying your name right. Dane Nielsen wants to know how I transferred this to Bristol board. Dane, I'm drawing on a light table. So he was traced. I have the rough sketch right here, Dane, which someone will get today. I get to pick the winner, so I'm very excited about that. In fact, Jen Jonke, if you're listening, you need to send me a direct message with your mailing address so we can send you off the recycled goodies from yesterday. But someone will get this today once I get it done. All right, let me zoom in. I'm going to work on that pauldron and the thing. So I have, as mentioned, I have some Raven Skull reference. So I'm going to use that and let that help me out a little bit while I'm chugging along here. Anyway, yeah, I've just been I don't know about you guys, but I've been kind of just vacillating between being calm and okay, and being just a very uneasy, anxious feeling. I think mostly because you know the uncertainty of how long many of us will be kind of in this reality, and obviously what it's done on doing to the economy and to the health of so many. And Angie and I have so much love for New York and all our friends who live in New York City. Angie and I lived there for many years, and so it's tough to see the news. However, we did go on a long walk this weekend, which helped a lot. And then Sophia and I pumped the bikes up. It's warm enough now here in Massachusetts for me to no longer have an excuse of not bike riding. And so Sophia and I went on a nice long bike ride yesterday, and I really did feel so much better afterwards. My natural habitat is the studio. My natural activity is what I'm pretty much doing right now: drawing, painting, writing. But physical activity has been so positive for me, especially as I've gotten older, and obviously with everything that's going on. And I see Dave Peterson's on. Dave, I hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining. I'm designing a evil wizard, a warlock, for Darksword Miniatures, for the DiTerlizzi line of miniatures. And when we play games, we all use miniatures. However, it's funny, I designed these miniatures, but we actually use plastic little toy figures. And the reason we like little plastic army men and things like that, and the reason we use plastic figures is because they can get, soda spilled on them, or get dropped on the floor, knocked around, and they seem to be able to handle it. I remember in the 90s when I was really playing a lot of Dungeons and Dragons with my friends, I would spend the weekends with my brother buying these metal miniatures and spending all weekend painting them and getting the colors just right and mixing all the colors, and then I'd bring them to the game, and the dungeon master would knock the figure over, okay, that you're dead, you're knocked unconscious, and then slide the figure off on the mat, and you'd see the line of paint smear across the board, and then there would just be that bright silver spot on the figure. So I couldn't bring myself quite to do all that work. It seemed futile. I mean, as a hobby, it's great to be able to just kind of sit and paint these little miniatures. But for the gaming purposes, we use just plastic toys. They're just hardier in general. You can see I'm just doing a bunch of, this is really just building off the circles and scribbles. It's a lot of scribbly stuff. Another legend, Brian Froud, and I both share the technique of kind of scribbling and roughing out abstract shapes, and then kind of finding the forms and the designs and the patterns in the shape. He's much more better. He's much more masterful at it than I am, but it is something I like to do, to just kind of let the brain kind of do these abstract squiggles. And I can glance up. Robert Rogalski says he's been angry and anxious and has been walking and meditating, and it helps. Yeah, Sophia has a meditation app, and she's been doing that at night. She does the, what's it called? The Midnight Laundromat, I want to say, or the Laundrette. And that helps her. And yeah, it's been tricky. It's been a little harder to get to. I've been staying up later than I normally would stay up, and as I said, just much more distracted, less laser beamed focus than I normally am. But I have been working. It's just been in little pockets. Or, maybe that's just how I work and I don't even realize it. It's just now when I have nothing but spare time. Anyway, Kate Jenkins once said it would be amazing for me to work with Brian Froud on the new Dark Crystal series. Boy, Kate, that would have been a dream come true for me. However, that's so Brian's thing. I mean, like, I don't think I could add anything. You have Brian Froud. You had not only Brian, but his son Toby, who's an incredible sculptor in his own right, and his wife Wendy, all worked on the new television series, and I think that's who you should have on it. I think I would have just been a pair of hands with a lot of ideas that may have just driven Brian and Wendy and everybody nuts. I don't know. I'll save it for the, if we get a chance to do some more Spiderwick or something else, that'll be my thing. I really was able to give a little bit of input and advice on the original film. I worked, I wouldn't say I worked, I consulted. I mean, that's really all I did with the production designer, Jim Bissell, on the film. And Jim and I got along terrifically. He's a wonderful human and an incredibly talented artist in his own right, and had worked on so many unbelievably huge films. And I was able to help, where I felt I could, and that was super exciting. And Phil Tippett, actually, who did a lot of the effects for the Spiderwick film, also really invited me in and allowed me to offer input and feedback. And again, they did, not that they really needed it. Phil and his team did such a tremendous job on the designs and on their interpretations of my designs. I guess I say all that because it would be, if any of these other potential shows get into production, I think I would definitely jump at the chance to be fairly hands-on and involved. I'm thinking maybe a jewel, like this skull has like jewels in its eye. I think that would be kind of cool. Tell me what you think. That'd be kind of cool. Let me know. I'm not sure. I'll hold out on that. Just see what you guys think. I'm gonna just keep kind of inking away at his pauldron. All those little tassels, all the Planescape stuff. These tassels were, I felt like they were everywhere in the 90s when you went into like a home goods store. And it's so funny when I look back at this. Ange and I started dating in 93. And she moved in with me right before New Year's of 1994. And I remember just going to the mall and buying home goods with her, cheap furniture and things like that. And Ruby, Jewels in the Eyes. Okay, good. Wow, you guys are all jumping in on it. That's awesome. Okay, good. I will do my best. Is it cut like a diamond? Ooh, I'd go with Cabocons over faceted. It would be, I don't even know what that is. What's a Cabocon? I'm probably not even saying it right. I don't have Ange here to Google things for me. Anyway, there were tassels on everything back then. I felt like the furniture, you'd get like a little end table and it would have like a key, and the drawer would have like a little key that you could lock it in. The key would have a big fancy tassel tied to it, and the curtain tiebacks would have tassels. Yes, a jewel makes sense. I agree, Kate Wheeler. Wow. Cabochon, David Peterson. I don't even know what that is, David Peterson. That fake Baroque style. Yes, it is, Alfonso. There's the smooth jewels. Thank you, Patrick. Got it. You guys all shows my lack of knowledge when it comes to all things jewels. Got it. Well, I don't know. I think faceted would just look, it would read immediately. You'd know exactly that this, let me try. Let me lift out a little bit here. so we can actually see what we're doing. I feel like if I make it faceted, then the viewer is going to know immediately that it's jewels in its eyes. Right? Doesn't that make more sense? Robert Rogalski got to see got to go to the Henson Creature Shop. We should all tell Robert Rogalski how much we hate him for getting a chance to go to the Henson Creature Shop. That's amazing. So no, in all seriousness, that's so super cool. I would love to go see the Henson Creature. I've been to their Los Angeles offices, which does have some puppets in it, but nothing like that. I'm wondering what this... I feel like it would have more. Something else to it. I don't know, maybe more. That kind of feels right. This is just part of the pauldron. I'm just trying to... Oh, look at that. Three-eyed thing. Yeah, see, the faceted jewels. I think that's going to just... everyone's going to read it. And when the miniature is literally this tiny, you're going to know faceted. So I'm going to go with faceted. Although, I'm glad I know what a cabochon is now. Oh, there's Ange saying hi. We miss you today, Ange, but get your videos done. All right, I'm doing the little facets. And I'm thinking there's definitely one right here. Another little jewel right there in the head. I just think that makes it. And I like the idea, though, if you are painting this guy, that you can determine if they're diamonds or they're rubies or emeralds or whatever you think would be cool. Very much like a Skeksis, I'm going to try to make everything about his costume very dark. Well, we'll see how it goes. That's at least the game plan. Let me finish getting these tassels done here. And then we'll get to it. I think we were talking about doing a pencil design exercise too, which I think I'll do maybe tomorrow, because Friday I want to go back to doing live by request, because I just absolutely have so much fun when we're doing that. So tomorrow I had promised you all I would do something in another medium besides pen and ink. So maybe tomorrow I'll do I can do a little show and tell with the new Kenny and the Dragon and the old Kenny and the Dragon book, and maybe do a little do a piece in the style so you guys can kind of see how I kind of am doing what I'm doing now, but doing it in pencil and getting pencils to do it, and how that gives it a different vibe. I would say almost like if this is like coffee, and I would say if I did it in pencil, it would be more like tea, right? So not as strong, it's a little less. There's more subtlety allowed. So I'm going in with my brush pen. Wish me luck. Hopefully I won't mess this up, but if I do, I've got my white out. I don't know if Jim Ludwig, the owner of Dark Sword Miniatures, is watching this. He's either loving what I'm doing or he's shaking his head because I've put so much detail into this thing. But I picture so much, and I did, at the time I pictured so much of the Planescape stuff as extremely Baroque. Just super overly ridiculously ornamented. And also not necessarily making sense. And what I mean by that is that if you're wearing, you had a lot of people wearing like corsets and skirts and then nothing else. And I think because I always pictured that those items were magical, And so therefore you didn't need to wear a full set of plate mail armor. At least that was the thinking I had when I was doing it back then. It's a little harder for me to wrap my head around that now. I think the practical part of my brain would want to do it. So the other thing here is, if you're noticing, it's definitely asymmetrical. So it's got a symmetrical-ish silhouette, and it's all built on circles. You can see these circles, and he's got this crazy Doctor Strange, Ming the Merciless collar going on. But then within it is all asymmetry. And I'm literally using my old construction lines here that I've erased to kind of just add to it. And I would do this a lot when I would do these old Planescape things, just to give it that weird kind of otherworldly coming together. Robert thinks he should have a metal skull cap like Merlin or in Excalibur. I thought about that, but I like that it's, yeah, I've got a little bit of hair, so that's interesting though, Robert. That would be pretty cool. Also very Ming. We'll see. I could definitely change what I have to a metal skull cap. Joanne Lone wants to know if I have any tips on how to stay in touch with my inner child. That is a great question, Joanne. I don't know. If you go back, I don't remember what episode it was, but we did a virtual tour of my studio, and you would see that it looks like an explosion of a 12-year-old's bedroom. It's full of board games and toys and books. And a lot of it is the stuff I grew up with, the stuff that I grew up playing with and adoring, and then 9,000 more things now that I've collected at various flea markets and junk shops over the years and garage sales. And those artifacts, board games, old Star Wars toys and things like that, remind me of what life was like when those were the most important thing in my life. So that helps a lot. And I think it's easy to let, our mortgage payments and insurance and all our bills and everything that's going on in the world right now just completely crush any kind of childlike joy that we may find in life. And yet we have to hold on to it now more than ever. I sometimes worry that kids today actually don't get as much of a childhood that my generation got. I'm 50 years old, right in the middle of Gen X, and so we lived in a time of life before computers, and certainly before the internet, and now life afterwards. And I feel like there's so much readily available for children today that we had to discover. And I think that the way we played back in the 70s and 80s is very different to how children play today. And so, yeah, Angela and I always feel it's our responsibility to ensure that Sophia not only has a safe and enjoyable childhood, but a childhood. I often was confused when Soph was in elementary school with some of the other parents and their approach to how much they did or said and what they told their kids. And only because I felt like, it's a much bleaker, I feel like the world is a little bleaker. There's a lot more, let's be honest, that can be a little scarier than wasn't on anyone's minds back in the late 1970s or 1980s when I was in school. But I Soph will have her entire adult life to think about those things and worry about those things and protest those things and vote for those things or vote against those things or all that stuff that I think as adults can really occupy a lot of our brain space. And so I feel very strongly not we don't keep information from her, but we just are very selective in what we do tell her and how we tell it. I think that's it. I think it's so easy to just sit down and go, I'm going to tell you everything. And it's maybe just more than she needs to know right now, because look at what it's doing to so many of us as adults. And so much has changed. I said, news when we were younger came on at, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, was on for an hour. It was mostly facts that were just read. This happened, and this happened, and this happened. And again, in the 80s, once the 24-hour news cycle started, it changed the way news is delivered. Now we can fret about whatever the news is all day long with other people and experts. So it's not to minimize what's going on in the world at all. It's just that, there's only so much bandwidth we all have that we can handle. And so I guess it's a long-winded way, Joanne, of saying that sometimes it's very hard to hold on to being a kid. Sometimes I feel like I'm not being a man by holding on to such things that were important to me, like drawing a evil wizard that's going to be a gaming miniature, and yet it brings me joy. And maybe that's it. It brings me joy, and I have a playful relationship with my daughter, and Angela does too, because we're big kids at heart. That part I really would be the biggest reason, I would say, to try to hold on, and don't be embarrassed to, do something silly with your kids. That was a long-winded answer, but yes, Andy Robinson, never abandon. Yes, yeah, I could have just said that, right? Never abandon imagination. Now you know why I say that. It gets harder and harder sometimes to not abandon it. I'm not sure. I feel like the underside of his collar needs something. I'm just going to do a little bit of a border. I don't want to do too much because I don't want to make it that you don't see that it's the underside of his collar here. Let's do some little flourish. Just a little bit there. There we go. I'll do a little zoom in. Yeah, Joanne, that was a long-winded talk. Thank you for... David House, 49, he loves his childhood and riding bikes and exploring the woods, and I'm with you 100% on that, David. I'm high-fiving you from afar. Eric Burker is here. He says it's looking good. Thanks, Eric. I hope you're doing well. I'm feeling pretty good about it. Alfonso Morales wants to know why I haven't done a TED Talk yet. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. It's come up. We being like my team, so my, Angela, our publicist, I could push hard to go do that. I don't know if TED Talks are they a thing anymore? I don't want to take away anyone who's done a TED Talk or watches TED Talks regularly, but I feel like, I have the TED Talk app, and there's now so many TED Talks about so many things that I don't know. It's like everything else. There's so much of it now. I don't even know where to begin. And I don't know if, if I did a TED Talk, if it would really make a difference or reach. I'd almost save this kind of stuff. This is this kind of stuff we're talking about It's kind of pretty much what I do when I'm on book tour and doing my events. If you were able to catch me at the Rockwell Museum or the Mint Museum last year, you'll know that I pretty much covered a lot of the things that I talk about here. All right, I think the skull's done. I'm feeling pretty good about that. I'm going to move on to his hands. Look at those little meaty hands. Mike said my -- dad coffee cup trophy is in the mail. Thank you. Sophia's given me one of those. Actually, today I've been showing you guys my coffee cups. Someone got us these like little people coffee. Hold on, I got to shrink the screen. Someone got us these little people. So I have Freddie Mercury today. Yesterday I had David Bowie. I think I had Prince the day before that. Someone got us these. I absolutely love them. Yeah, Hector suggests maybe a masterclass. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'm just loving hanging out with everybody on a daily basis doing this. I'm going to do his hands. And hopefully you can see that. He's got rings on every finger. I think that would make sense. Big. These would be the other kinds of gems you all were mentioning earlier, which now I've completely forgotten. The ones where they're polished and round. I don't think these would be faceted. And there's a knuckle here and another one here. I'm going to have him holding a small bag. Let me get the bigger pen for that. There it is. What's in the bag? That's a big question, huh? Thank you, Carol Ann Craig. The cabochon. Yes, these are cabochon cut gems on his rings. I'm just going to give him a nice simple scallop for the frill of his ruffled sleeves. Okay, this will be all dark. And then you get a little bit of the... And then I'm definitely thinking some kind of fine fur for the edge of his sleeve here. Not sure the color yet. I'll get there when I get there. Let's see. I feel like this is tied. I don't know what's in the bag. That'll be like the big mystery item. That's part of the story, right? What's in his bag? Either something strange or something. Bag of holding, Joel says. Somebody said something strange or something. June Gallagher says someone's heart. June Gallagher, you read my mind. It's like you crawled in my mind and read. I definitely thought it was a heart. That's very classic fairy tale, right? And if you're shocked by the idea of that, I would remind you that the Wicked Witch in Snow White asks the huntsman to bring back Snow White's heart in a sack. Or no, in a box. Like a little thing. Yeah. Or, as Robert Rogalski has pointed out, a bag of nuts. Yeah, roasted, toasted almonds. He loves those. He's sad that he's in quarantine because he can't get those ones on the street that they serve in the city. So he's been roasting them himself with magic. Okay, shade. I'm definitely thinking this is... So how I'm going to do this is I go down the pattern, do the dots, and then whatever other, so if I do 2 dots here, then I just keep it going. Kind of give that whole thing so it looks very fancy and lacy, which I'm sure it would be. Not sure if the fur is going to be like a black dark fur or a light fur, so I'm going to hold off on shading that just yet. Same with the sack. I'm not sure if the sack should be colored. Now, if you look his belly, he has an embroidered like face in the stomach. Let me pan out a little bit. Angela West says it's a bag of holding, can have all the above. I agree. There was a big discussion, Angela, about the size of a bag of holding. It's actually, we looked it up. Now, we use old-timey second edition rules, but when we looked it up, what we discovered was the bag is quite large. It's the size, I think, of a pillowcase, which does make sense because you're putting all kinds of things in it. But I was quite surprised because this is totally the size I see it. I always pictured it like, Mary Poppins' carpet bag where she's just pulling, a lampshade out of this tiny little sack. So I don't know. I think this is fur lined as well. That would make sense. Maybe I'll figure out something cool for the fur. This looked, let's see what we got here. I'm just gonna, that's a sleeve. That's a sleeve. This may be some other. This is almost like the Planescape, like what I'm drawing here and what I always thought the Planescape stuff had was like, it's almost so much detail, it makes your head hurt a little bit. You almost have to squint. So the trick is you can do all this detail, but you have to have it all read at kind of the same level. And what I mean by that is this is all going to be kind of dark. When I get to his cape, I think it's just going to be solid black. I think that's really going to help anchor him down. So here I'm just kind of slowly getting to where I want to be. I'm going to shade this. This is like his tunic under everything. So he's got kind of this almost ceremonial bizarro garb on. He's got a big old belly. So again, if you tuned in yesterday and you're like, hey, he's kind of built like Stregonona, you would be correct. I was inspired by the shapes of Stregonona and used them for this warlock. Craig Austin says favorite bag of holding was in the book Elf Song. Danilo kept wine and other luxury items in it. I love that, as opposed to weapons and things, which I don't know, shoving a sword or some kind of battle axe in your bag of holding just seems like you're asking for damaging your bag of holding. I mean, it's still just a sack. All right, I'm just kind of slowly getting in here. So he has this, I kind of pictured it like an embroidered face in his tunic here. Did I see that Joe Sutphin's watching? Hello, Joe Sutphin. I hope you're well. If you guys are not familiar with Joe, Joe has been a fan for many, many years. I've taken great pride in seeing Joe develop and grow his style, and he's been working on an unbelievable endeavor, which is a graphic novelization of Watership Down that Joe's working on. And maybe Joe can talk more about it. But if you get a chance, Joe's on Facebook and Instagram and all those things. He's a pretty talented guy. And Jim Ludwig's here. Jim, we've been working on this guy. Let's see what you think, Jim. Let me pan out, which is always a little tricky. The phone's on like a boom here. Let me zoom out a little bit. So we're working on him. He's coming along. Lots of detail, which, Jim, you're either going to love or hate. Well, maybe you don't care because you don't have to sculpt him. But he's coming along nicely, and I'm working on the embroidery of his tunic, which has this face. I once read that soldiers would paint monster faces on their shields to scare and discourage the enemy. And so I thought that was so cool. So I had both seen that and thought a lot about that when I was working on Planescape, and I thought, man, they probably put monster faces on everything just to be more intimidating. So even a wizard like this, he's got this monster face on his stomach. Now, if I leave that light, and even though there's a lot of pencil line on there, it's very light. It's very light lines. And if I stick with that, which I may do, then I can do the little bag here, his little sack, in a darker shade. And I think that may be what I'm going to do, but I got to give it a little bit of time to dry. As you saw the other day when I was inking the Wicked Witch, if I don't give it enough time and I go to erase, it smears everywhere. So here's his other sleeve. Just drawing in the fur. Again, I'm not sure if the fur is going to be dark or light. I got to figure that out. I think I'll know more once I get the rest of him kind of sorted out here. So here I'm coming up on the bottom of his little skirt. So he's got a, let's see, hold on. Here's the other side of the ruff. Okay, and then here's the outer sleeve is probably here-ish. I didn't really sort it out, did I? Let me just zoom out a little bit so you can see. So I'm just going to quickly ink what I think is his sleeve. And I like it. It's so long, it's overlapping his cape. See that? And that's obviously going to be all dark in there, right? So that's kind of nice. And then here, this is also going to be furred. Very opulent. Very, like, almost like he thinks he's a king. Okay. So he's coming together. And then he's got this little elfin shoe, which I'm just going to rough in like that. So we don't see his other foot. I very lightly penciled where I thought his other leg was, just so I knew where his other foot landed. But that's going to give me a good sense of, this will be shadow, giving me a good sense of the rest. Let me zoom out so you guys can see the whole caboodle. The Grand Master Warlock, Alfonso Morales says, yes, I agree. He is definitely a... but it would be funny if he was only like 4 feet tall. But 6 feet with the cowl. Which I do think he's like a hunched over guy. I want to... I'm going to zoom in on the face just so you can see a little bit of finishing work here, because we're not going to be able to finish the whole thing today live. I'll go for a little bit longer. This part should be dry. I'm going to hit it with the hairdryer just to be sure. Keep it from smearing and smudging. Derek wants to know if fur is considered leather armor. Good question, Derek. I have no idea. Another way I can check is my thumb is fairly clean. I can press it in the ink areas, and if I get, you can see there are a couple dots of ink, then I know there's still wet ink. There you go. Look at that. That's really wet. See all the ink it picked up? So I'll keep the eraser far from there. But by blotting it, I can kind of get an idea. But I think his face is pretty dry, so I'm going to go ahead and just clean off so I can kind of see what we got going on. I'm not even going to go near his stomach yet. Yeah, look, there was still a little wet. Do you see that? And then in the nose there, it's smeared. Which is, oh, it's fine. But I just want to get a little bit of a... So you can see how little... Like, once I start removing all that pencil work, so think of the skull, like how light that's actually going to get when I remove all the pencil construction lines. It gives you, so you can see perhaps a bit how I'm actually looking at this thing when I look at it. So when I look at his stomach here, I see it very light, like his face. Even though there's a ton of pencil lines here, it's closer to this in final. So I'm going to do a little bit more pencil work, and then I'm going to do a little, or pen work, and then I'm going to do some pencil work on his face. Let's get him here in the zone. A little bit of shadow. A little shadow on these eyebrows. I'm going to like that. He's more squinty. I'm gonna go in with a little pencil and shade. Let's see, I didn't even figure out where the light's coming. I think the light, let's say the light's coming from his staff, so I'm just gonna do a little bit of light there. Coming in. A little shade on his face. I'm gonna smear that in. I'll get a newer eraser to kind of cut it out. Cut out the eraser. I'm not adverse to the skull. Someone had suggested possibly a skull cap. The other thing I was thinking was, Ming the Merciless always kind of had this eyeliner, which is kind of cool too. I don't know. I'm not feeling it. I thought maybe it'd be cooler than it is, and it's not. I don't like it. I'm gonna lift it out. Not really. I'm just rocking it back and forth, and it's pretty much picking up everything. Give it another shot here. Maybe that's all it needs. What do you guys think? Here, let me zoom out. Hold on, wait for it, wait for it. It's always a little hard here. There we go, zoomed out. So you can kind of see he's almost owlish the way the shadow of his eyebrows kind of shades his eyes, which I don't mind. A little shadow under the nose. So he's got all this white. I kind of pictured he had this white, he's got the white eyebrows, the white beard, and the white hair. Wondering if we should do the skull. So if we did the skull thing, like Merlin, this would be, it would be kind of like this thing. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think it's too much. It's too much. Emily noticed that I have my Dover book next to me. Yes, I have it. I've been using it as reference. I've been looking at mid-15th century Burgundy for reference for the ruffs and the patterns and all these things. And it is the Dover Historic Costume and Picture. I use this book all the time. I've used it for 30 years for reference. I think we tried the skull cap a la Merlin. I thought it was a good idea as well, but I'm leaning not again. I think I'm leaning against it. I don't think I want it. I think I need the openness of his head. And instead, what I think I'm going to do is push on his skin tones a little more with the pencil here. So let's get here. We're just going to get that blush back in, that kind of jowly blush, and I'm also going to put it up here. Like maybe this guy's got high blood pressure. He's always red and rosy. Definitely his little ears are. And then I'll go in, and then like under his eyes, probably like that kind of blood vessel-y blue. This is shadow. This is shadow. Now I'm going to go in just with the pointier eraser. Yeah, Tom, you're right. No cap. He prefers the breeze on his scalp. I couldn't agree more. I think that's it. And I'm going to just clean up his eyebrows, make sure they were nice and white. Maybe even give him a little shine on the nose. All right, guys, there it is. Can you believe we hit an hour already? I've had a great time drawing this evil warlock for you, which I've got to come up with a clever name for him. But I've had a good time drawing. Let me zoom in so you get a nice look. Aw, thanks. Dave Peterson thinks he's great. Nate wants to know if there's forehead wrinkles. Guess what, Nate? Ask. Oh, and you shall receive. Lots of forehead wrinkles. I've had a good time drawing for you guys today. And I hope you've had a good time as well. I get to figure out who's going to get all the recycled bits of stuff. And I got to say, Steve Jankowicz, you were terrific in sending notes, and Robert Rogalski, you were also great at sending. I know you guys are both longtime fans. I recognize your names. If you both could send me an instant a direct message via Facebook, I will send you printouts and copies and goodies and all kinds of stuff that I would have otherwise thrown in the garbage. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm pretty sure Ange will join me tomorrow. I will post a scan of this guy once he's all finished. Oh, he's trying to get away. Let's zoom back out on him so you can see. He's coming along. He should be done here. I think he's got about another hour or so, and I'll keep tinkering with him. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Stay safe, be well, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.